Hi and welcome to this video. It's going to be a wrap-up of 2021. I think we'll talk about what happened in the industry performance marketing and what happened inside R17. After my video you will also hear our head of search Lorenzo and our head of paid social Jandré talking about industry specific trends. I think for me and for R17 as a company it was a very successful year. We grew quite a bit. We could deliver outstanding results, I think, for our business partners, which is obviously the main passion and goal for us. Within the industry, certain things happen. Obviously, the big event was that whole iOS rollout, which made it much harder to track on Facebook and to trust your data. I think ultimately the core result, or what's happening for us in the industry, is we must trust more the top line growth of a certain business, right? The actual revenue that comes in on Shopify, Magento or lead system or whatever, compared to the ROASes or the CPAs tracked by Facebook, right? Because attribution window is down to 7 days. Then we have that whole blocking that people just block the tracking. Obviously, then we have ad blockers in browser that become more and more common. So finding patterns from between ads and top line growth and then optimize on that. I think that became and will continue to be a huge thing. Point number 2 for me is the whole. So Google and Facebook, particularly also Snapchat, they invest a lot in their AI machine learning, and it really become to a point that trusting the machine and optimizing, let Facebook optimize and Google optimize is the big thing. And where we actually as performance marketers come in is obviously less with this whole tactics that worked like 5-6 years ago or 3 years ago. It's more put the focus on the creative, on the sales message, on the strategy, on the holistic view that becomes more and more important compared to every little hack, duplicate ad sets and dribbling budgets everywhere and manual bid and so on. It becomes really trust the AI and do the strategic and creative work around. That is definitely a big trend that I think also will continue in the future. I mean, we have seen it with in a country like Switzerland, a small country, is broad targeting is the way to go. Usually if you have a mass product that can be potentially bought by a huge amount of people, there is not the value in doing a whole lot of lookalikes and a whole lot of in-depth interest targeting or fancy funnels and so on. It's really about giving a broad targeting and let the AI do the work, but heavily focus on the creative and the strategy part. Point number 3 is the whole announcement of Meta Facebook for me and the transition into AR. Which will continue to be a very important thing. If we look at Snapchat, we do a lot of ads on Snapchat, and then we have a very successful partnership also with Snapchat in London, and their whole placements are changing a lot, and you can be much more engaging and creative in your visuals that you go out. Another point is that the whole nativeness of content, I think, was also a big change and will continue to be more important, like ads that don't look like ads, pure native content, UGC, customers doing review, testimonial videos at home with the phone, no fancy studio setup and so on and so forth. I think that is another core topic. Yeah, and to summarize it, think holistically, see the business as a whole, also very much focus on let's say the general marketing knowledge, and apply that to performance marketing. And I think that's going to be important and was even more important this year.
Hi, my name is Jandré. I am the head of paid social at R17 Ventures. I'm just going to run you through what the main events were in the paid social landscape in 2021. So early in the year, we discovered that we were getting many auto account bans. The cause of that was that Facebook deployed their AI to screen accounts. The reason they did that was because of the election in the United States, and we saw many account bans due to just auto AI screening of ad accounts, and it had quite an impact in terms of ad accounts being down for an amount of time, which we then had to obviously go through an appeals process to get them reinstated. And I mean, the bans were not based on actual ad account content or what was being advertised. It was purely an AI decision made by Facebook, and that did cause some disruptions early in the year. The main thing that happened that impacted basically all social channels was the iOS update that was done by Apple. The main effect that we saw was that it affected Facebook the most, but other social channels were also affected, like Snapchat and TikTok. The main things that happened were that the attribution windows shortened quite a bit from 28 days down to 7 days. So I mean, for certain products, the conversion cycle is much longer than that, and we then saw a big drop off in sales and a big impact on ROAS. It also had a big effect on audiences, particularly lookalikes and retargeting. What we've noticed is that certain products that we were advertising on Facebook, when we look at the analytics and what products are sold, these products are still selling. However, they are just not tracked in Facebook. So we advertise certain products on Facebook that are selling, but we just see no tracked revenue. So one way that we found to mitigate that in the short term initially was to go with broad targeting for the top of funnel, and then also to consolidate in the middle of funnel for retargeting all our ad sets. This improved the performance slightly. Also, another thing that we noticed was top of funnel acquisition became extremely expensive with very high CPMs. We then moved away from acquisition and more to awareness in the top of funnel and focused way more on retargeting in the middle of funnel. These were the main effects on Facebook and social this year. Definitely it was the iOS change.
Hi, I'm Lorenzo. I'm the head of SEM at R17 Ventures, and in today's video I'm just going to sum up the search trends of 2021. I think it's been a very interesting year for search. We've seen some big changes. I think there are a few points I want to talk about today. One of them will be match types. We've seen, which also ties into automation, more and more of a trend towards automation, and that's coming into the keywords too. We're seeing a lot of recommendations on broad match, and I think there's a few reasons for this, which I'll also go into later. To start off with the match type changes, we've seen broad match modifier basically be deprecated. We've seen a complete change in the way Google defines match types. As I mentioned, the change in broad match modifier going to phrase match, exact match becoming a bit broader. In general, we're seeing the way keywords are defined going the broader route, and it becomes really important then that we monitor the search terms. We trust a little bit more in automation, but also keep our negative keyword lists up to date on a regular basis as we see search terms come in. Another thing I want to talk about is ad types. We've seen the push towards responsive search ads, which have always been super powerful, again, going towards the machine learning aspect. It's definitely becoming the new standard. We've seen text ads, expanded text ad basically become deprecated towards the end of this year. And that means responsive search ads being the new normal going forward. And this again just talks about the trend towards automation. On the note of automation, we're seeing a major shift in how people search on Google. People are using voice search, people are using shorter sentences. Google is very much, the autocomplete is advancing more and more, and people are typing in 1 or 2 words and getting their sentences filled. And that's why I think the change in match types has become so important, and the use of broad match has also become important, because it's much more tricky now to actually figure out how people are searching with exact match keywords and the more narrow keyword types. And it's really become important that we just let the machine learn. We trust in the broader match keywords, but make very important that we're keeping an eye on the search terms report. We're updating our negative keywords list, and we're using the correct bidding strategies. whether it be target ROAS for e-commerce or target CPA for lead generation, and just kind of adjust according to what we need and see which keywords are performing and which aren't. Lastly, I think we, across the board on Google, although still very relevant for search, we're seeing a big importance in data with the crackdown of cookies in time, and in general users' privacy becoming very important on all platforms. First-party data is really important to have for machine learning and even for retargeting on search. One of our favorite strategies of ours on accounts that have a lot of data is the DSA RLSA, which is dynamic search with a retargeting list. That list is most commonly customers, which is your first-party data. It can also be email subscribers or even website visitors. And there again is the importance of retargeting your first-party data and just having the data in the Google system to help the machine learning. I think that about sums up the main big trends we've seen this year. Thank you very much.